make some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on. As usual, today is Monday, January 26, 2026, and I hope you have a snow day. Do you have a snow day? A happy snow day? It is, apparently there was a snow day on Friday as well. I had already left for the thing that I was doing, and so I didn't know about the snow day Friday, but there are exams, there's all sorts of things, and the weather is not cooperating. It is freezing in my garage, by the way. It's like minus 15 where I'm at, and so I have my trusty heater on, blowing warm air at me, so apologies if that's bothersome in the background, but it'll go away in a month or so. Minnesota insurgency is off the hook. It is absolutely wild. Yesterday, I read a report from James O'Keefe talking about what he experienced with the Minnesota insurgency and the spotters and the difficulty losing the tail and all of those things. And I found that story concerning and interesting. And so I looked. Well, more stories came up about how organized this network is, and it seems like it goes through up into government. And that's interesting, and I'll show you all of that. So that's something to pay attention to. 2030 agenda and 15-minute cities in England. Yes, it seems like they are doing that, and the 2030 agenda is having Starmer, I think, push the 15-minute cities, and people will be fined. But it's one of those things where I think it's an accelerant to breakdown of society, because when they make normal things illegal and normal people respond to that by not complying, then you criminalize that normal behavior, and then it's a vicious cycle of downward spiral. And I hope that that doesn't happen, but I think that that's the obvious direction they want it to happen. Carney's going to Australia. Why? Well, he's using our tax dollars to travel around the world while destroying the country and not feeling any of it because he's flying around the world. So yeah, going to Australia to address the Australian Congress. Isn't Australia and England and Canada all in the same sinking ship? Yeah, I think so. So they're having congratulatory meetings while we all sink in the ship that's sinking, that they're designing to sink. So Trump fallout for the China deal, and there never really was a deal, and you're imagining a deal. What deal? We never had intentions of breaking any agreements with the United States. We didn't want to, and we're sorry if you got that impression erroneously, right? Like, so there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, China deal. And Trump is very, very clear about what's going on here, and he does not want he does not want this China deal to happen, and he is putting things out on Truth Social, and I think it's encouraging because it doesn't seem like Trump is going to let this happen. But I say again, what happens after Trump? Is it Marco Rubio who's going to be the defender of Canada? Which would be weird, right? Or is it going to be J.D. Vance? So I don't know. At this point in time, we have not solved our problem. The problems just keep getting worse. And if we rely on Trump to solve our problem, then what happens when he's gone? The problem comes back, unfortunately, right? The monsters under the bed are real. And, well, they look like Mark Carney. Donald Trump says a must-watch. Canada is systemically destroying itself. The China deal is a disaster for them. Will go down as one of the worst deals of any kind in history. All their businesses are moving to the United States. I want to see Canada survive and thrive, says President Trump. And he's showing the video I showed of, I said he was a union boss, but he's one of the automotive guys. I'll play a little bit of it again just to turn those memory wheels. Here we go.
My name is Brian Kingston. I'm the president and CEO of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. Canada's auto industry is under enormous pressure, with over 90% of Canadian production destined for the United States. There is no industry without U.S. access and North American integration. Diversification is not an option for automotive, as markets in Europe and Asia are better served by assembly plants in those regions. Canada's market alone is too small to justify large-scale manufacturing. The future of Canada's auto industry and the hundreds of thousands of jobs that it supports depends on securing our trade relationship with the United States. The federal government's decision to open the Canadian market to Chinese EVs is deeply concerning. The Canada-China strategic partnership has the potential to undermine Canada's auto sector and presents risk to the future of our integrated North American automotive supply chain. As the Premier has outlined, it is critical that the federal government rectifies this situation by taking immediate action to bolster the competitiveness of the very companies that have been building cars and employing Canadians for over 100 years.
We'll leave it there. I said yesterday, it seems like the policies that our government is putting in are finally bearing fruit. The policies, the fruit that they're bearing are companies are leaving, Canadians are poorer, there's less options, and the government needs more of a hand. People who depend on the government are easier to control. And the Liberals love that. They love having full control of everybody and everything. It's absolutely incredible. Scott Bessent is refusing to take the bait from the media. Why do you hate Canada so much, they say. And he says, well, hold on now. Here we go.
Why is Donald Trump threatening Canada again with another trade war?
Well, Jonathan, good to be with you. And look, Prime Minister Carney went to China, came back, dropped some industry-specific tariffs on Chinese goods, and we have a highly integrated market with Canada, sometimes in autos, which he dropped the EV tariff, I believe, from 100% to 6%. The goods can cross the border during the manufacturing process 6 times, and we can't let Canada become an opening that the Chinese pour their cheap goods into the U.S. We have a USMCA agreement, but based on that, which is going to be renegotiated this summer, and I'm not sure what Prime Minister Carney is doing here, other than trying to virtue signal to his globalist friends at Davos. I don't think he's doing the best job for the Canadian people.
Why is Donald Trump threatening Canada?
I also don't think he's doing the best job for the Canadian people. I think that what he's doing is trying to provoke a trade war in order to look strong to Canadians for some kind of spring election. But again, I'll say, it doesn't make rational sense to me. If your strategy is, I'm going to get elected to make a deal with Donald Trump, and then instead of doing that, you make a deal with China, pick a fight with Donald Trump, and then use that fight to leverage Mean Man Trump into a majority, I think the strategies, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, so I don't get it. But maybe I'm dumb. Who knows? Donald Trump says China is successfully and completely taking over the once great country of Canada. So sad to see it happen. I only hope they leave ice hockey alone. President Trump. Oh no, Canada has fallen. It's too late to save it. Maybe like Minnesota? Maybe. Here's Chris Pavelski. Oh, this should have gone a little earlier. But Trump says that companies are leaving Canada for the United States, and Chris is the Rumble CEO, and he says Trump is not wrong. He's right. Rumble is a multi-billion-dollar example. So Rumble went to the United States for free speech because Canada doesn't believe in that. Really honestly, genuinely doesn't believe in that. James E. Thorne says, for the record, Carney's sectoral China deal rolled out from Beijing without serious consultation with President Trump's team flagrantly misread where Washington's red line now sits. It's not about legal FTA formalities. It's about whether Canada volunteers to be a pressure relief valve for Chinese overcapacity into the U.S. market. Carney walked straight into that line of fire and then tried to hide behind technicalities. Taken together with his Davos moral grandstanding and thinly veiled jabs at Trump, it's hard to avoid the conclusion that he actively wanted a blow-up with Washington to dramatize his own values brand at home. Picking a public fight with Trump over China lets him posture as the virtuous defender of multilateralism against that big bad White House, even as he jeopardizes Canada's core economic interests. Meanwhile, Carney's team continues to treat green as a foundation of his initial industrial policy, ignores a separatist movement in Alberta that is quietly gaining steam. Quietly gaining steam? It is a friggin' freight train. Have you seen the numbers? Whew. It's wild. Just watching people line up is incredibly wild. Like, if this was not a popular thing, you wouldn't have hours-long lineups. And the fact that they're ignoring it, they ignored the Freedom Convoy too. Separatist movement in Alberta is gaining steam and spend its political capital virtue signaling to his globalist buddies in Europe. If TDS were a country, Canada, under Carney, would be that country. Trump derangement syndrome, TDS. Willing to risk 100% tariffs and USMCA blowback just to signal its distaste for Trump and his China strategy. This is not a grand strategy. It is performative anti-Trumpism masquerading as foreign policy, and it leaves Canada exposed, not principled. I agree. Here's Mark Carney talking about China deals and how actually we didn't do a trade deal. What are you talking? Trade deal? I don't remember hearing anything about that. Here we go.
I'm pleased today to announce that Canada and China have reached a preliminary but landmark trade agreement.
We have commitments under CUSMA that not to pursue free trade agreements with non-market economies without prior notification. We have no intention of doing that with China or any other non-market economy.
I'm pleased.
But you already did it, and you opened up, you took down the tariffs to 6% to have China send in electric cars. Are you going to undo that? Or are you going to say, oh, tut, Trump, we can do whatever we want? Because that's going to blow up in your face, you idiot. Here's Mark Carney, a little bit longer on this, but fundamentally the same message. The first one was Carney announcing the China deal, and the second one was an excerpt from the speech I'm about to show you, which is just Mark Carney scrumming with the parliamentary press. Here you go.
How are you responding to Trump's threats about 100% tariffs?
Well, the first thing is that Canada respects our engagements, our commitments. Il y a des engagements dans l'ACM. We have commitments under CUSMA that not to pursue free trade agreements with non-market economies without prior notification. We have no intention of doing that with China or any other non-market economy. What we've done with China is to rectify some issues that developed in the last couple of years. In many respects, we're going, to use the expression, back to the future with respect to EVs, with respect to agriculture, with respect to fish products and other food products, but with additional protections. So for example, back in 2023, we didn't have a cap on the number of EVs. We didn't have a requirement for a large proportion of those EVs to be affordable, highly affordable EVs for Canadians. So it's entirely consistent with CUSMA, with our obligations, which we very much respect under CUSMA and will continue to work that way forward.
So it doesn't sound like he's going to change anything about the deal, which doesn't sound good for us. Here is another Liberal guy, Mark Carney. Mark Nixon says Mark Carney stands on the world stage, announces a new world order, then turns around at Davos and lectures and insults the United States. Now the Liberals say, we've done nothing wrong. Liberals are playing with fire. I don't know which guy this is, but he's a Liberal, and it's from Juno News. Maybe we'll find out there. MP Cody Blois says the government isn't pursuing a free trade deal with China. Here we go.
Just one thing I would like to say is I think it's important for Canadians to understand, and I think Mr. Miller and others have been very clear. We're not seeking a comprehensive free trade agreement with China. That was never on the table. We've come to a trade arrangement where we're able to reduce tariffs that certainly matter for Canadian industry, Canadian farmers, seafood industry. At the same time, find a pathway for investment in the auto sector in Canada. And I think it's important. I'm going to pull off my glove here. Can you hold my coffee? Thank you very much.
Am I getting a raise?
I do think it's important for Canadians to understand. I was looking this morning, actually. Here's a press release from the White House on November 1st, and it reads, President Trump strikes a deal on economic and trade relationships with China. That came out of APEC. So what we have done as a government is consistent with what the United States has done with China, which is find a pathway to create market access for, in their case, it was American soy farmers and agricultural producers. And obviously find a pathway. They're selling AI chips to China. So they found a pathway not on a free comprehensive trade deal, but just on certain arrangements to reduce tariffs. We're following the same path. We're following the Canadian interest, and we think it's the right pathway.
When Trump says that China's going to eat you whole, I don't know. That's a warning that should be heeded, especially from our biggest trading partner, who says, you should probably not do this, right? It's like, okay. But we go ahead and do it, and I think that's to our peril. CTV News is reporting Carney insists Canada has no intention of seeking a free trade deal with China, but we've already done it, and Trump's already responded with, if you don't change this back to what it was and what I want, then I'm going to hit you with 100% tariffs. And that doesn't bode well for renegotiated CUSMA or USMCA or whatever you want to call it. I think CUSMA sounds silly. Dennis is responding to that. He says, this is an attempt to redirect the conversation. The issue isn't a free trade deal. It's how Canada has been engaging with China over the past several weeks, including EVs and partnerships on areas that have nothing to do with trade and the risks that approach creates. Nothing about the security that Canada said they're partnering with China for. Nothing about any of that yet. Nobody's talked about that, right? Oh, yeah, well, this and that about EVs and, going back to the future. Who says back to the future other than to reference the movie? Like, this is not a turn of phrase that people use. Ivano says, Minister says we share net zero goals with China, and yet China is the world's largest emitter. And just set a coal plant record. So the Chinese make a new coal plant a week or something like that, 52 a year. Here is this guy saying, yes, our shared green initiatives is what ties us with China. Our geography and hundreds of miles long border tie us with the United States, not green ambitions of fraud.
Let me be clear. We are here because we share a goal. We share a goal on getting to net zero. We believe we have lots of common interests with respect to how we use clean energy to get there, and we have common interests around how to get there on a conventional basis. And we're going to exploit that for the benefit of Canadian workers and for Canadians. Let me be clear.
They're going to exploit China's net zero goals, eh? Laurie Goldstein says, high-flying Carney must focus on home with separatist movements in Alberta and Quebec, economy, uncertainty over USMCA, food inflation, the need for new bitumen pipeline, and more. The Prime Minister has plenty of domestic issues to deal with in Canada, but he's going to be flying around the globe finding trade or doing speeches or something like that. Australia is one of his first stops in March. The Reclamaire is responding to this CBC headline, NORAD pact would change if Canada pulls back from the F-35 order, warns Trump envoy to Ottawa. And so we can't buy the cheap planes, or the so-called cheap planes. I don't know if they're actually cheap. We can't buy those ones. We have to buy these ones if we want NORAD to stay the same. Is there a meaningful difference between NORAD and the Golden Dome? Is the Golden Dome just a modified NORAD, like a modernized NORAD? And when is NORAD? Usually they track Santa Claus, right? Like most of the time, sometimes the United States does security for the Canadian Arctic with regards to insurgencies from Russia. And okay, great. That's wonderful. That's NORAD in action. How often is that a threat? How often is that threat happening? Is that like a lot, or is that a little? I don't remember reading much about it, but it might not be news these days. Just like, a shooting in a Walmart isn't news anymore. It's happened so often. So I genuinely don't know. But I was saying Canada's not a target for intercontinental ballistic missiles. I've never seen a missile fired from one place to the other. I don't think provinces are going to start firing missiles at each other, so I don't see a need for the Golden Dome. Protecting the Arctic, okay, sure. I could be convinced that that's worthwhile, as NORAD is doing the job now, and Canada's not doing a very good job of that. And we're being threatened to be kicked out of NORAD as well. So what does that mean? They just get the land by default because we can't do anything about it anyway? And what does that mean about the rest of the country? I fear it means very similar. So it's interesting. The world is crazy, and it seems like the masks are coming off. The polite pretending that has been done for the last post-World War II era, that's over with. We're not going to pretend anymore. And if you don't have the ability to defend your territory and the United States has to do it, well, maybe now you're just American. Maybe now you're a vassal state. Maybe now you're not even American. You don't get a vote or anything like that. You just get to listen to us when we tell you what to do. And I hope that doesn't happen, but here we are. Right now, I don't think we control our government. I don't think Canadians are in control of our government at this moment right now. If we said we don't want to have boys in the girls' bathroom in our high schools. Oh, well, sorry, sir, that's bigoted. No, it's not. It's common sense, actually. We don't want to send money to foreign war. Oh, sorry, sir, that's pro-Putin. You're not allowed to have that position. That's a pro-Putin position. We don't want to send money to foreign terrorists in Gaza. Oh, sir, you can't have that position either. No, I don't want the government to act against Canada's interests, and that's all they're doing at this point in time. They're stealing our tax dollars. They're not fixing the roads. They're not improving the infrastructure by and large, and they're sending a lot of the money out to other countries for foreign wars. And if the money doesn't go out to foreign countries, it stays here and goes to foreigners here, just like Minnesota, just like the fraud in Minnesota. And if you try and fight it, then you're going to get an entire insurgency on your hands, just like Minnesota. And we're going to talk about that at the end of the show. So we're in a bad way. And all of these security things, the Golden Dome doesn't protect against that, an insurgency from the inside, right? It doesn't protect against woke Karens. It doesn't protect against the government flooding your country with illegals who get tax dollars and access to all the best houses and other amenities, etc., all paid for by you and me, right? The Golden Dome's not going to fix that. So I don't know. I don't think the Golden Dome is necessary personally, but Maybe I'm just naive. I'm still young. Trending Politics says Australian Prime Minister Albanese backs Prime Minister Carney's Davos speech slamming great power coercion, announces Canadian Prime Minister will address Australia's Parliament in March. So, yeah, I don't trust any of those guys. I don't trust them at all. Why? Because of everything they've done up to now. All of their actions tell me that they're not working for the people who they're supposed to be working for. And they're not even really pretending all that much. We'll do war, and then I've got to say goodbye to the stream. Alexander says, basically, we won't be wanting peace even if Putin wants it, because our plan is to get us into a war so we can stay in power, as we can't be voted out in wartime, which is a trick Zelensky has mastered beautifully to stay in power. So this is back and forth about what's going on with the United Kingdom and joining the Board of Peace and not joining the Board of Peace. And this woman sounds like a Karen. I don't know who she is. I don't know what position she's in or anything like that. I'm not as up on UK politicians, but she sounds like she's talking down her nose at people, like she's better than everybody else. Here we go.
35 countries are signing up to President Trump's peace board. Is the UK?
We want to be part of the second phase of the peace plan for Gaza. We've strongly supported the 20-point plan. We won't be one of the signatories for what is a legally binding treaty today. That raises other constitutional issues. We also are concerned about suggestions that President Putin might be part of this because, frankly, we need pressure on President Putin to deliver peace in Ukraine, which so far he is refusing to do.
By staying out, aren't you reducing Britain's influence on what could be an important diplomatic effort to stop the war?
Well, we're continuing to work very closely and have international discussions on how we work together, both on supporting the peace process in Gaza and the different work we are already doing to support the 20-point plan, but also to support the US and some work around how we get a peace agreement and a ceasefire in Sudan, how we work together already around some of the issues on Syria, where we are closely working with the United States. So those international discussions and cooperation will continue, and we'll do that in the right way.
Somebody was saying that NORAD is the Chinese balloon tracking system. Totally failed. And another person is saying I'm saying NORAD wrong because it's NORAD. NORAD. It's just like borax. Borax. Whatever. I'm sure it is very important, but I will carry on. And I did say I was going to do this one, and then we're done. Here is the AFD saying they will join the Board of Peace. Alice Waddell says, when we come to power, we will join the Peace Council founded by Donald Trump. And so that's a popular position. And again, it's unfortunate that Canada's elections are rigged. I don't feel like we would continue voting for what it seems like we're voting for. And it seems like the European elections are rigged. If the wrong person wins, like Slovenia, they just nullify the election and do it again until they have the outcome they want. So, man, I hope we're able to fix all of this, but it seems like we might just be enveloped by the United States. Like, we're behaving so stupidly that we might just be taken over because we're not even on the board. We're not even moving pawns, like, if we're doing anything, we're moving one piece back and forth. We are not doing ourselves any favors in this chess game that we're embroiled in. And so inaction is a move. Inaction is an action. And because we are not doing anything meaningful to counter the moves being made around us, not even really against us, just around us, against the globalists, yes, but not against Canada. Canada is a globalist outpost, but it's not against the Canadian people. Right? And the trade is being used to encourage the Canadian people to kick these bums out. But both sides are just as crooked. So it's one of those